I think that's where most of the roadblocks are with any and all of this data is how do I get this data into the hands of...
On this episode of the RCN podcast, the advanced research and technology leader at McElhenney, Kevin Grover.
Because we need people that have business acumen. We need people that have the technology acumen. We need people that can sell it. There's a huge opportunity there for survey professionals in that space.
I think is important to raise for the whole industry that's adopting scanning and drones.
I think that's the biggest thing too, is where communities like this or RCN or these other events, like talk to people. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Our industry is not on pace to keep up with the demand that will be generated in the next few years.
I can now adopt a $1,500 piece of hardware that does a really nice job.
You have to scan, you have to model. And I don't think that we're producing the amount of experts and technical people to handle all this data and collect all this data.
We can push technology to our blue in the face, but if it doesn't actually solve a problem, it's kind of a moot conversation.
All right, welcome to another episode of the RCM podcast. Excited to have our guest, Kevin Grover, with us today. Kevin, thanks for joining.
Oh, thanks very much, Matt. Great to be here.
Excited to talk. I know we've known each other for a while now, but you know, one thing I love about podcasts is even when, I'm talking with somebody that I know, you really get to dive pretty deep into the story. And I enjoy it, myself. And I think it's valuable to our guests because a lot of people want to hear, like, how did you end up in the role you're in? And I think even with those of us focused around these unique technologies, it's kind of a niche field. And I think there gives some valuable insight into, like, maybe ways we can inspire people on their journey. So before we dig in and talk about technology, I like going all the way back and talk about, what was your dream job growing up, what was the path that got you headed into the geospatial industry?
For sure. No, honestly, So growing up, my first dream job, I remember as a kid, is I wanted to be a garbage collector. I don't know why. I think it was just like, I don't know why that ring, comes back, but that was the first thing I ever wanted to be as a kid. Honestly, beyond that, I think I kind of wised up going through school and then learned kind of my love of maths and that kind of thing over school and found it, very easy. And honestly, I went to university. I started in a business degree, like, to begin with, and I thought it wasn't really for me, so I transferred to engineering. Honestly, went through my first year of engineering at the University of Calgary and thought, hey, this is kind of fun. And then you have to kind of specialize in what you're gonna, major in. I was always planning on being an electrical engineer, is actually what my initial plan was. But honestly, at the University of Calgary is one of the two universities in Canada that used to actually have the geomatics program. I kind of stumbled across geomatics. I don't know, I think I was at a career fair or something, just kind of found out, hey, this looks kind of neat and it's a small group of people that go into it. Yeah, figured to give it a shot. So, honestly, I went through my engineering degree, graduated. Then I decided what the heck do I want to do with my life? I had a, job interview down in the States to work for an area LiDAR firm, or I decided to maybe try the land surveying route. So, honestly, I picked the land surveying route and kind of went through that path. Then honestly went through that for years through Stantec. That's where I kind of started. And that's where I initially met you at Stantec, and I ended up being there for almost 19 years, I guess. Honestly, but even then, my journey through then moved from field work for years, got involved with a whole bunch of different technology over the years, and honestly moved into the PM role. Kind of started leading or helping to lead our survey geomatics group, and then kind of morphed into these kind of more technology roles, even within our organization. We just started seeing some disconnects, and that was kind of one of my interests over the years, is always to help connect technology. We were 1,500 people in our Edmonton office alone, and like 15,000 people as a company, and felt like we had some really big challenges of just honestly the right hand talking to the left hand and figuring out how to do things better. So honestly, kind of just started morphing into these different tech roles, started with a bunch of app development, and then, of course, this laser scanning focus and the drone program. And honestly, it's just kind of the funnel kind of just started getting bigger over the years of all these kind of tech sectors I was kind of involved with. So honestly, just kept going into that, moved into an innovation role. That's kind of where the last few years of my tenure at Stantec, we built an entire innovation program. I was a geospatial innovation lead there, and again, as broad as that sounds too, it's exactly what it was. It was looking at all the different new technology from survey grade technology to mobile capture to aerial to satellite, and honestly, all of these things together, and how we can use any of these things to make sense of it, kind of in our engineering world that we kind of work in. So,
Yeah.
And
what I know that's a nice big summary of 20 years of starting in the field and then getting into this big innovation role. Let's talk about a little bit of what you can remember experiencing some of that transition, right? A lot of our industry, even today, a lot of our industry is still challenging and talking about, it's hard to get companies to even believe in and adopt new technologies, or you've got people that are still using old technologies. Share a little bit of your thought around the transition you saw there, going through those phases.
For sure, and I think, I don't want to date myself, but I remember being in we were even introduced to some of the first RTK equipment kind of when I first started, that was early in the journey when it was new, but it was like so prohibitively expensive to expand to everyone. But honestly, I think, that was the one thing I think about my initial firm, I guess, through Stantec, and a great leadership, is we actually had support to start diving into this different tech. And I think that's, I think we're challenged even more that there's way too much technology. Back then. Like, we were very limited, even on the RTK side, you had two shops.
It was easy. You either do
you had
it
a
or you
shop,
don't.
or we had two options, and they both cost a pile of money. But now I think it's just that there's so many options for all of this tech, and I find that it's probably overwhelming to many. And I know that we still find that, like, it's overload with all of it, but I think it's always, you got to pick your battles.
Yeah.
Start somewhere. I think you can you're never going to buy it right. I think my claim to fame, even at Stantec, is I remember buying a tunneling software package, and my little plug out to Scott Hayes, who's no longer at Fair anymore, sold me this tunneling package. Turned out it wasn't actually what it was, like what it was needed. It was a very expensive piece of software. It's kind of lesson learned, but you kind of had to do it, play with it, figure it out, especially as you get into specialty niche services and markets. You know what? There's always some tool or software that you got to be willing to try and stick your neck out and see if it's actually going to work for you. But the longer you wait, the more stuff is going to be available. So
yeah,
I think we're at a point now in this market the market's flooded and saturated with all technology.
Yep. Have you always leaned toward trying new things, or were there times that when you were on your journey, you were kind of hesitant of new tech, or you got used to a process, or, how did you personally go through some of that?
Yeah, I'd say, probably growing up, I was always kind of a tinkerer. I remember taking apart everything that I ever used to buy, like, honestly, every toy, anything motorized thing. And that was honestly kind of why I liked the whole electrical engineering side of things when I first kind of wanted to start engineering. I was always kind of maybe creative on that front, so it never really scared me. I remember, taking apart computers and rebuilding them and kind of just figuring that out. And, before YouTube and telling you how to do it, you just figured out how to do it.
Yep.
So I've always kind of been involved with it. I'd say through the land surveying industry, you got very methodical in the workflow, and especially the legal survey side of things. It's, there's a certain way that you have to get from point A to point B. So you kind of learned how to do that, which is probably why I did morph into more of a technology focused role over the years. Is I don't really like to sit still. I kind of do like taking on new things, honestly, like yourself too, is just, there's a big world of stuff out there. I find it exciting, but I think part of it is also I enjoy bringing people along for the journey to help with it. It's like, if you can't convince people or work with people and talk to them about why you're doing things, then really there's no value to anyone. So
sure,
I think that's probably been my mindset. I've always enjoyed it. So does it scare me? No. I think it scares me more so now to cut through a lot of the stuff that I don't want to look at.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, with, like I said, with the flood of technology in the market, there's a lot of stuff out there that, a lot of snake oil that we need to kind of comb our way through now too. So,
can you remember a time that you were really bought into a piece of technology and you had a challenge with getting other people bought in or to believe it, or, that, and I know you're saying one benefit was you did have buy-in from leadership, but, where's a time where it was hard to convince someone even after you were confident in it?
Yeah, Honestly, I'd say on our drone journey, I think is initially our pass or UAV or whatever we want to call them now. Our pass, I guess I'll call them. We just tell them in Canada here, but honestly, it was one of the first ones. So we bought like one of the first EV systems, which was fantastic. We went back to even versions prior to that we were looking at, but we had one larger purchase we were looking at doing through I guess naming names because I really enjoy the company still. It's through Skycatch. They were one of the early drone pioneer companies that actually they had a drone in the box solution years ago. They were like the first company that had it probably 15, 20 years ago. And they used to park it on a site and it would work. You would swap batteries. And I thought, this is awesome. Like that was, it kind of my interest in drones peaked very quickly then when we started looking at this automation that could come out of it. Great, I can install this thing and fly it and capture all this data. So we went down a path with Skycatch, and that was that was a tough one. I'd say internally, it was like we bought 5 systems kind of within a bunch of different regions. It was early in our journey with drones in general, getting people on board with it. And we faltered a lot because of a number of factors. You know what? They were a little before their time for like a mainstream product. We had some challenges there. Their software processing, of course, had a long way to go. Surveyors didn't believe in automated data processing, and we were very nitpicky on every little thing along the way. And and I would think it was we faltered a lot because we didn't have a lot of people giving feedback to the company along the way as we were working. Like I think personally, I think that's a very valuable thing that we can do, and we need to. All these software vendors and hardware vendors are our partners in this space. They'll bend over backwards for the most part to solve our problems better, sell us more hardware, sell us more software. But that comes with, we got to tell them. So that was one thing I think we had a challenge with. It was new, it was different, and it was automated. Yeah, it was a tough thing to convince a lot of folks to like jump on board right off the bat. So I'd say lesson learned. You know what? We did kind of change their pivot, our direction on it. I still talk to the Skycatch guys every so often. They're still focused on mining. They've still got a great product. So, I'm glad to see some of these firms that we've started working with over the years are still around. So I think that's kind of picks that right technology direction that you kind of focus on at the start. So
totally. And whether it be a scenario like that, internal or a client or what are some things, if someone else listening is having a challenge convincing someone else of using a new technology, being innovative, and they are stuck, what are some things you initially think of, like, how do you approach a conversation in order to try to, make that shift? What are some strategies or things that you attempt to bring with you?
For sure. I honestly, I think that's, even in my new role now, kind of leading our innovation program here, we can push technology to our blue in the face, but if it doesn't actually solve a problem, a business problem or a personal problem or whatever that ends up being, it's kind of a moot conversation. So I think our latest innovation challenge we're running is actually everything starts with a problem challenge. And it really focuses on, like, what are you trying to do? Like, what does your client need? What do they want? Because, because there's so many themes of things available right now, like digital twins and all the AI stuff that's out there and all of these things that really don't know what they are. Yeah. They're not really a thing. It's like, but why? Like, why do we need this digital twin platform to do this? And what is your goal out of it? So I think I think this is even back to I was a product manager for 2 years at Preview 3D as well. And I think that kind of wore a different hat in my mind there too, of thinking about how we can build something to solve problems. And that's not just build something flashy. We had something flashy, which was great, but then you have to pivot around to, what can I use it for? Yeah. So honestly, I think that's the biggest thing that people don't spend enough time on up front is, maybe it's just a metric you're trying to do. I'm just trying to become 5% more efficient in my day-to-day tasks. Cool. What can I do? Then you look through the laundry list of things and narrow down what's available and talk to people. I think that's the biggest thing too, is where, communities like this or RCN or these other events, like, talk to people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Yeah. But I think it all starts with that is, where do you need your value? What are you trying to do? And that starts to talk to clients. Because we've tried to sell them sexy stuff over the years and it fails miserably. I think we've all seen that. Like, that only gets you so far. You might get someone that'll invest into it, But now I think, the market's wised up. There's a lot of stuff out there. We're really focusing on narrowing a technology stack in a lot of organizations. So what does it do? How can it save me money? How can it make me more money? Awesome.
Yep.
That's, and that's how I always looked at it. So if I need to invest 10,000 to make 100, awesome.
Yeah.
That's an easy sell. But just to spend 10 for the sake of doing it, that's a tough thing to do now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Just another tool,
Yeah,
Too many
that's right.
tools.
Well, and honestly, you end up with overload with, with training and like what vehicles you're going to put things in, and who can use and where things are, and tracking capital assets. Like, it's just, pick your battles. Focus on what's going to do to solve your problems faster, more efficiently.
Yeah.
Or whatever your metrics are that you want to try to solve.
Yep. Love it. Another question would be around, I'm curious your perspective. You've been in it for quite a while. You came in the survey industry, and I think I want to talk about survey specifically a little bit, and we'll jump back to other tech. But I think the surveyors often in the industry are pointed at saying they're slow to adopt technology and they're behind and they don't, I'm curious what you've seen that transition or the growth of survey companies using these tools, especially up in your region. It may even be a little different than some of the areas in the States. What's your thought on the survey industry in whole and their adoption of these new technologies and even getting into the detail of like how much should traditional surveyors be adopting these tools?
Very loaded question.
Yes.
Again, I'm a surveyor, so I can, I always kind of wear that hat. It's like, I think I've been quite proactive, but I think, we've got a wide range of people in this industry that think on two sides of the spectrum. I can't say it anything different than that. If you do have early adopters, very, people willing to try things. And I've worked with people over the years that are very willing to try things and want to do things and do more. Then conversely, you've got a lot that just don't. They're very traditional. They're very focused on the very traditional products we've authored, which is fine. And I don't think that's a problem. I think that's kind of where I think the surveying community and industry have been just challenged over the years with, I guess, what we think is our own to kind of hold on to. And I really still struggle with that. It's like, I'm a legal land surveyor. We're very legal boundary focused. Like that is our focus. Like that's the main thing of why the profession exists, why we exist. Are we positioning experts for all this other technologies on the market? No, I don't think so. And I don't even want to say that I am. Like, I learn things and adopt tools and figure out how we can use them into our process. But we're challenged by, hell, I remember when Google Maps came out, like unreal. Like, you look at the technology, like it's survey mapping technologies being used, but it's just brought to the masses. Now we see like Planet Labs and all these like satellite vendors that are generating this data that can deliver, mapping grade or very close to survey grade, which I also hate that term, survey grade. Like, it's such a, we need an actual metric of what that means. But again, like there's all of this stuff that exists. So I think, honestly, just how you use these different things and adopt them and solve problems, I think that's where the survey community still needs to grow and I think like own more of that. Like, we're still professionals that are right, but we should be able to leverage this other technology to solve the problems that we do. I don't think that anybody really owns any of this technology, and anybody says that they do, I think is just completely mistaken. I even saw a post this morning on like RTK and phones. Like, awesome.
Yeah.
That opens up so many opportunities for surveyors and non-surveyors and everyone in the world to start having these devices at your fingertips. And I think you got to think creatively along the way of like how we're going to solve these problems. So I'd say, it's a mixed bag of people, but I still think a lot of the products that we still author and the products we legally author and the products we have to deliver to designers and architects and engineers, the problem is those haven't really changed.
Yeah.
Like, I chaired a futures committee for our land surveying association for 2 years. And, we were still arguing about what, do we show heights of decks on our real property reports? And this was after 40 years of discussing this. I'm like,
Yeah.
we should be on this as a discussion point. Like, we should be thinking about what is our next product. Like,
Yeah.
let's start digitally delivering survey deliverables. Like, that should be our product.
Yeah.
Why not? Like, we can own that, we can manage it, but it's a different industry and thing we get into. So I'd say this typical skill sets that surveyors are trained in are not what I think we're progressing towards. But again, nor is anybody.
Yeah.
You look at engineering disciplines and architecture, like, they don't learn about all of these things, and they have to get on board or they're not going to. So I think it's an interesting time, and we're challenged with it in our firm here as well. As we're doing a lot of great things, but also, there's only so much you can invest in as well. That's the other piece of the puzzle too, is we're never going to do everything, and you're never going to be an expert in everything. And I don't profess to be either. So
yeah.
I'm not sure if that answers your question in a roundabout sense, but
it does.
It's
Yeah.
We have a lot of room to grow.
Yeah. I like hearing it and talking to, other surveyors and other people about, because, and it's a topic I bring up a lot coming from survey background as well. And, the first angle and reason I talk about survey so much is because a lot of people just grab a tool that don't know anything about control or accuracies or errors or anything like that. And that's the biggest piece of awareness that I think is important to raise for the whole industry that's adopting scanning and drones and all of that, because I very much agree too. I don't think that surveyors own all this technology. What they can continue to elevate themselves on is accuracy experts, measurement experts, that like, okay, if you want to confirm, you want your control network to tie that data to, that's a very specialized thing, right? If you want to go take on a massive job and ensure that your scan data or your drone data is accurate to a certain degree, and the liability with that, and reports for that, you can't only use the new tool. No scanner is going to go out and do that by itself. You have to have control. And my current issue is that so many people don't even know that. They don't. They get just shown a scanner, and they don't even know that it's a potential problem, and nobody's really educating on that. That's where I think surveyors can own some lane in this area, is like, look, that we have to educate the industry and each other, and the surveyors should help educate on what happens with the tool if you use control or don't, or how much control do you need, or when should you call the surveyor in to come help you. Because historically, I think there's been a lot of projects that end up with mistakes and errors, and nobody knew it. And now that hurts the provider who didn't know better. And then the client or the end owner for that project gets a bad taste for the technology. So for me, it's like, look, if we can raise awareness to what are the ecosystems of tools, and how do we properly implement them to accomplish each type of, deliverable or, problem per industry, to help people avoid problems. I think that's my biggest reason for talking about the survey and these technologies together.
I honestly couldn't agree more. I think that's the biggest struggle is just, is the data you're expecting or needing, able to be achieved? And I think, not to knock on sales folks, but I think they're always out there selling what we think is possible, and I'd say that that's probably very far from the truth. Like, I don't believe a thing that anybody says until we basically be able to try it, test it, see what we can do, especially with a lot of the new technology that's on the market. Like, there's a lot of stuff coming out now, and I'd say we see a lot of overseas technology that's popping up now. It's very compelling. And the price is getting cheaper. And again, I think that's where surveyors have a tough market at that point. But I also think the other piece to extend on this is, I think that, getting the data right's one thing, but I think also knowing about what our market segments are to do stuff with this data beyond what we're doing now is an opportunity that we're not really capitalizing on.
Yeah.
Like I said, like the whole digital twin effort, this whole, digital delivery, 3D to 4D design. I think there's a ton of opportunity for the survey community as a whole to be more engaged there. Yeah. And I think that goes beyond just, collecting a data set once and washing your hands of it and throwing it away. Like, this is getting into how could we manage project data, this geospatial, geomatic survey data on a project site, how we can make, decisions out of it, how we can like build, API connections and actually start building products off of these. I still think that's where we're not really built to think like that. And I think we got to think product focused. All these tools that we subscribe to, cool, get people to use them, get them integrated, work together and solve problems. So I think there's a huge opportunity that people aren't really grasping. We seem to just hold on to we've done it this way for years. This is what we're supposed to do. I need to stamp this, that's where I fit. And nobody could take that. I'm like, no, there's a lot more we can do. I would love to deliver digital real property reports for entire municipalities and have that owned and managed by geospatial professionals.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't want to deliver paper products anymore. And I think this is very fitting into a lot of this, future workflow. So we'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the thing is the industry in whole is moving that direction. And
whether we want to or not.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And so it becomes, look, nobody owns the tech. And the adoption is growing in all directions, right? Because some surveyors are doing scanning and some start to expand to creating models from scan data. Well, some construction companies are adopting scanning. Some architects are adopting. It's a little bit of everybody trying to figure out who should really do this? Who should collect it? Who should model it? It's all challenging. There's so many options. The ecosystem is messy. And so that's why I care so much about having even these conversations and building this community around it is, I say this quote often, but it's the best way to predict the future is to create it. And so it's if nobody helps shape this vision and pulls the community together to help guide some of this, it's just going to stay wild. There is no standards. Definitely. There is no certification. There is no standard delivery. It's all over.
You've actually brought up a great valid point there regarding standards, and I would be open to hearing what others are. I know in Canada, from the legal survey community, we don't have a lot of standards for anything for the technology that's being used. It's been talked about, and I know we had a conversation years ago at one of our general meetings about the drone technology, and that was probably one of the technologies that really, really opened up a lot of the survey discussion because the cost was so low to enter the market. There's a ton of software out there. It was very black box, and you could generate 3D data sets very easily. So you know what? That was one of the first challenges, but they're like, oh, we should own it. We should own it. I'm like, well, we don't even have a standard around.
We don't even know what to
do with the data. But we don't. Yeah. So I'm like, so that was I think the challenge with any and all of this as we get into SLAM technology and all these other tools and things out there. Now building AI into all of this kind of the work that we're involved with. There's so many things that we can't standardize things to death. So I think that's where we really still have to focus on what products we're going to own, what products we're going to, again, stamp and authenticate kind of as a professional. Those are still the things that I think we need to focus on that.
Yep.
So I honestly, I can't say enough. There's a huge opportunity there for survey professionals in that space.
Yep.
We just have to move beyond a lot of the things that we're doing now and be a little bit more open-minded to this. And like you mentioned, working with designers and architects, you know what? Hire some of those staff and work with them directly. I don't profess to be a designer that can, even model a lot of this, modern architecture specifically for design purposes. Nor do I want to be. And I think that's where, really, I'll hire somebody on the architectural side to be part of that. Same thing on the piping design piece, whatever we end up. So I think getting these very cohesive groups together is absolutely necessary for any and all of this to be successful.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah, and that's that goes along just the push of I say collaboration is one of the keys to be 100%. Able to make this work and scale. Because you can't do all of it. And so even in that sense, whether it's collaboration by bringing in new roles that you've never had before, so you have this ecosystem of different perspectives and experts who can work on different delivery, or you realize okay, we can't be the one to do everything, so we need to shape here's our specialty or here's our service or here's our industry, and then not, be afraid. I think historically so many companies put walls up and they're like, we won't talk to somebody who does something like us. They're competitors. And I'm like, if we break those down and we realize we can actually have synergy and collaborate and bring them in when we need that level of expertise in a different area, then you're going to create more opportunities, for yourselves, and it's going to help scale the industry.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, I think one of the other challenges we're faced with too is we always have this mindset and this fear of like delivering digital information to people and, what are they going to do with it?
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I would love them to take like this digital, like whether it's a point cloud or some other 3D data set or anything that we take, even if we're delivering like a CAD model for the design work, awesome, use it. Use it for whatever you need. It doesn't matter to me. Like at that point, I know people get hung up on, they're going to abuse it. It's not within the tolerances they need. I'm like, well, you know what? Then we need a better job of delivering that metadata and tracking that metadata, that information along the way. So
that's a huge one.
Oh, and honestly, it's like that's where I'd say like the Esris of the world have done a great job. You can track metadata information to it. I'd say that's where design software has lacked and failed miserably. You know what? You shoot it into a drawing or a Revit file, and it's there. It's got no spatial intelligence. So until we can solve some of that, I think that's that'll take the pressure off of us as survey professionals, or because really there's a lot of uses to even less accurate data. Yeah. And that's fine.
Yep.
and I also think that's where there's the biggest opportunity for us. There's a bigger opportunity to probably data that's good to this amount rather than this. Why not?
Yep, so exactly.
Embrace it.
Yeah, it's kind of like that idea of like Google Earth, right? Is it accurate down to an inch? No. But when you have a lot of data of different areas, it creates a totally different use. And we look at that and the same for our industry is like, is a big SLAM device or photogrammetry device, is it the same as high precision or metrology grade? Well, no, but that shouldn't be the goal of that data.
And it's not supposed to be. Yeah. It's interesting. So,
but I think the point you're talking about there, that's one I've heard talked about a lot, that I think even if we could figure out a process to solve that one problem of identifying what device was used to capture data or the accuracy of that data, because as a client or a construction company or whoever that maybe isn't the expert in the data, if they just open up a folder they were given and there's 5 different point clouds, what was used to capture it? How accurate is it? I don't know. And until some guidelines start coming in that help carry that information over, people keep using data thinking, I've seen this happen a lot. You go to capture a building for one person and they're like, hey, we only need 3-inch accuracy. Okay, well, good. We just run through there real quick. But then some other, structural person finds that data and like, okay, perfect. We can design our structural beams. It's like, wait, you're fabricating. You can't use the same data for the same.
Oh, exactly.
You have to shape it around the use case.
Yeah. And honestly, is there a way to solve it? Yeah. But it's kind of probably going to take technology with some sort of centralized data. Yeah, honestly, it's getting back to that, like, who do we own and what do we do? So maybe one of our roles is managing more of that just data at the outset and tracking it and disseminating it there in more of a digital platform.
Yeah.
I can't stress that part enough. Like, we start delivering just a single file, it's going to get lost in the shuffle. It's going to go somewhere. We have no control over it anymore, but I don't know. I've started putting less focus on that over the years and just, focus on just communication, talking to people.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can solve that kind of as we go and just educating that along the way. So,
yeah. Okay. A couple more questions. Out of the technologies that, let's start even with the ones that you've been using for a long time. Mm-hmm. What do you think right now still has like the most area for growth and adoption, over these next few years?
Yeah, I'll kind of answer it in then 2 parts. So I think I want to split up like the hardware from the software side, because I think honestly, from the hardware perspective, I'd say I wouldn't say we're tapped out on hardware, but again, like the path forward, we don't need much more data.
And we don't even while you say that, let me rephrase a little bit. Not even so much in the like improvement of hardware, but the room for adoption.
100%. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I think with that is the fact that, we don't need faster scanners. We don't need more data. I think honestly, we're challenged by cost is our biggest factor at the moment, which is why people are looking at lower cost hardware. you know what? And it's getting better. And I think that's, honestly, to adopt that, of course, that's the easiest thing for people to adopt new things. It gets cheaper. You can afford it. You don't have to charge it out for as much, and we can, use it on more projects. So I say that I think there's a lot of opportunity there to just get lower cost devices with higher precision. And we're seeing that, and I think that's where like the whole SLAM industry has really been challenging, like even like the terrestrial sector and like the traditional survey sector, because I can now go out with a smaller handheld portable device and I can get data that's going to be good enough for a lot of the projects I'm involved with. You know what? And even the hardware I need to tie and control as part of that. Like, I know in the back here, I've got like an MLID receiver in the back here. I can now adopt a $1,500 piece of hardware that does a really, really nice job of setting control. And it works just the same as my high-end Trimble stuff does. Will I use it to lay out a building? No. Or, like kind of work in like roadways? No, because the software needs to support that.
Yeah.
But for like this different capture workflows, I think that's where there's going to be a bigger opportunity for us to enter the market with this type of hardware, but we have to be open-minded on what that is. I think the second part of that is the software side. There's a massive opportunity for software in this space, because I think that's still where we're challenged, and we're still, I think that's where most of the roadblocks are with any and all of this data, is how do I get this data into the hands of engineers, architects, whoever is going to use it. You know what? We can't keep just throwing giant horsepower machines at our staff and hoping that they're going to use it. Like it's not a viable way. So, we build it into more web products. We need to build it into Autodesk Construction Cloud and manage data there. We need to build in all the Bentley products. And again, I think that's where there's a lot of even room for improvement on that side, that we need to get this data easier to use, because point clouds are still not easy to use.
Yeah.
They're cool. They're sexy, but you know what? For the most part, you still need really good software to work with them. Lots of viewers are cool, and it kind of entices people to what it is. But I don't know, if I see another demo about just how to measure in something, I'm like, you know what? I've rarely ever ran into somebody that actually needs to measure from here to here. Like it's not, no, they need to actually be able to move a piece of equipment through there to see if it's going to fit, not just pick off a measurement from a web platform. So I think that's where software companies have huge opportunity to start shaping and molding. Is like, I don't want to just turn all of this beautiful data into stupid points, lines, and polygons anymore.
Yep. I think, I completely agree, which might roll into my next question, but I was going to ask, out of the more recent new technologies or the upcoming technologies, what do you think is going to have the most impact in this industry?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll selfishly kind of plug one of the companies we're with now is the Look hardware is one that we're talking about. LOQ, if anybody's heard of them, phenomenal new system that's popped up. I think they're hitting some interesting things on with the fact that they're all imagery based, which again, we saw that kind of in the drone space. Like we were able to do a lot, and open up people's eyes with like photogrammetry just by, like the Phantom 4 Pro came out, and it's like, cool, I got a 20 megapixel mechanical shutter camera on a drone, and I can, $1,500 and I can fly this, and I can use this magical black box photogrammetric software, and I can generate, and it's like people thought photogrammetry was new, and I'm like, no, it's been around forever. Like photogrammetry's been around for a long time, but like they don't really realize now that you can do this with cameras that are a lot less expensive. So I think Look's an interesting one, and honestly the one that really impressed me. They're imagery based, so honestly it helps with people interpret photos very differently. Software interprets photos differently. Like AI works way better on imagery than it does on point cloud data. So like they were able to generate this beautiful looking data set. Honestly, it's a handheld device. I think we're seeing a lot more of these ones that are just using simpler sensors. Honestly, even look at your phones. Like you see Help Pix4D and their Pix4D catch, and like the MLID integration, the Catalyst integration. Now we're into these like $5,000-$10,000 devices that are RTK grade with camera and LiDAR, and I don't know, we'll argue about the LiDAR on a phone or not, but I won't get into that one. But again, it's inexpensive sensor data into a processing workflow. Awesome.
Yeah.
Like that's, get it in the hands of people, get these devices in the hands of like inspectors and everyone in the field that's out there anyways. We're seeing a lot of value as our company now, even to have like these blended roles of what people can do. Like, we've got surveyors that also can do like, compaction testing, that can also do some other type of, maybe an inspection work on a project. Get these skill sets to transfer across, and then maybe build in a data funnel that all of this comes through. And that's how you manage like how good things and the quality assurance piece is. Like, these tools have become so easy to use in the field now that you don't have to be that trained on using it. If you've got some best practices for these, like, it's becoming easier. And I don't want to make that sound easier than it is. It's becoming a lot easier.
Yeah.
And we're all seeing that.
Yeah.
I think that's, there's a lot of opportunity in all of these areas for us to just kind of grow and evolve our staff and evolve the products and the technology that we use. But again, back to what are we trying to solve?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. On that note, and you mentioned, with your staff and evolving and growing, what do you find right now for resources and for trying to grow a team? There's not a ton of people just coming out of school as experts in this already.
100%. Yeah.
Who are you hiring? Are you building out training programs? Are you bringing in kids? What kind of skill sets are you looking for as you grow a team? What's your thought around some of that?
Yes, you know what? So I'm not involved with a lot of direct hiring for organization. I'm helping out, but again, at the same time, I think the skill sets of I don't want to say kids anymore, but like these, our younger generation are coming through are hopefully just more adept at, at adopting new technology. I think we're seeing it as they're used to having, mobile computing in your pocket. Like, you can be connected, like you're used to all of these things that we never really knew about kind of growing up. We never, we didn't have to, but I think they're just exposed to so much more. I think that a lot are quicker to learn on a lot of these things, are excited to learn. I think, honestly, that's probably the biggest thing in my mind when we're looking at people and even the folks that I work with on our innovation side. Like, if you're interested in it, that's the big hurdle to get over first. Like, that's it. Like, you don't have to have a lot of technical skills, because we need people that have business acumen. We need people that have the technology acumen. We need people that can sell it, that can market. All of these pieces are interesting. But if you have no interest in any of it, then you fail no matter which one you are. So awesome. Maybe I've got a new like surveyor or an engineer that just is like, hey, I don't want to do it this way anymore. Awesome. Like, that's the best mindset to have. And then you can go into that conversation about, well, great. Well, let's look at what we can do. Let's talk about it, and honestly, bring in the right people to help to connect up, and you get kind of excited about that journey. I think that's more what I'm always interested in, is people that are passionate about, again, maybe challenging traditional status quos on everything that we're doing. So I can't stress that one enough. Be open-minded.
Yep.
The old saying, it's, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm like, well, yeah, I agree with that to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I think there's always room for improvement. And I think there's always going to be another thing that's better around the corner, which I'm not saying to adopt that and just chase the shiny penny all the time, but we have to be aware of it. We have to be interested, and we have to be, I think knowledgeable about it, but just accept that it's not going to slow down.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest realization people need to have, is if we think that we're at its peak, we don't know the half of what's probably going to be coming in the next couple of years.
Yes.
Things just become cheaper and more integrated together, and it's going to be an interesting next few years.
I very much say right now, I feel pretty confident in saying that our industry right now is not on pace to keep up with the demand that will be generated by the industries in the next few years.
No.
Because most people are getting on-the-job training. And so we're like hiring new students who don't really know anything, and it takes a couple years to get really good at something. And it's and yet we see those owners and those massive enterprises that are starting to realize the benefit of these technologies. 10 years ago, not very many companies were putting out a requirement of scanning and modeling on your projects. And that is starting to shift, where this is a big part of many industries' requirements, is like, you have to scan, you have to model. And I don't think that we're producing the amount of experts and technical people to handle all this data and collect all this data and create deliverables from the data, I really think the demand is going to outpace if we don't somehow fix that. Create educational content, create training material, work with universities. Like, I think it's outpacing us.
Oh, I completely agree. I think academia has a real challenge moving forward with all of this, because and with other industries, you look at the architectural industry, like how do you start teaching them all of these different things about the design workflows and the software use and like all these collaboration tools and, and honestly, even the construction methods that come across with automation for, like, there's just too much to cram into a 2-year, 4-year master's program, whatever it ends up being. So it is on the job. So I think, the focus that, like I said, in my mind is just have that passion, have that interest to want to do something, not even different, but just better.
Yeah.
And keep thinking of that mindset. So I think, the training will come, the tool adoption will come, but we also need to just collaborate and share learnings. And I think that's, even in a company like ours, I'm finding that, we're 1,500 people now, and like we still have a problem with making sure that, that left hand knows what the right hand's doing. And that's a problem we need to address too, is like, we don't all need to fail with the same things. And that's, failing is perfect. Like, failing is great. I think, if, from my innovation program side, if we're not failing, we're not really thinking big enough on a lot of these ideas. So like, try it.
Yep.
Support it, figure out what we need to do better, and move on with our life. So, and check your ego at the door. I think that's the biggest one I can't, say enough, is like, if you're wrong, you're wrong. Own up to it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, really, that's one of my biggest focuses with building the community around RCN is exactly that. I'm like, look, I still see people today failing on simple things that we all have been failing on for 15 years of like, okay, we should have a process to train people how to register scan data properly at this point. Like, it's taken too long. So instead of everyone hitting the same headaches, you're even saying it like, right within a big company, people are hitting the same headaches. Building a process that we help document and we educate each other. And then my goal is not just do that with one company, but my goal is to try to inspire all companies to do that and then come together and share those learnings as an entire industry through case studies and white papers and committees. And I'm like, let's help each other, avoid the headaches, right? Everybody says the best way to learn lessons is learn it from someone else's mistakes, not your own.
Honestly, honestly, and even your own, like those are the ones you remember.
Okay. Yes,
over the years, it's like I remember more of the things I've screwed up on and fixed and moved on than the successes. I'm like, and that's okay. We got to keep learning and evolving. So lots to do here.
There is. Well, okay. As we start wrapping down, I'll summarize with this question. Over the last 20 years, you've been dealing with all these technologies and growing. What advice would you leave with those that are looking to grow in this industry? There's a lot of people, that don't even really know where to start, but whether it's some career advice and or some technical advice, what would you leave someone with?
Yeah, honestly, I think, as we kind of talked before, like, don't be afraid to start somewhere. Make that initial investment. What's into something used or new, it doesn't matter. Like, and I think that's back to like, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Like, focus on that. Try to solve that problem with whatever tool or technology that you think is going to be the right one. Ask people, get some recommendations. Honestly, reach out to either of us and I'll try to point you in the right direction. I think that's kind of part of it. I'm not here to say that one tool is better than another. They're all great tools. And but I think it still comes down to like, what is it you're trying to do? Don't think that the one thing you're going to buy is going to solve all your problems. I think that's the biggest misconception people can have, is like, I'll buy this one scanner and it's going to do everything. Like, no, that's so far from the truth. Like, and it shouldn't be. And don't think you need like the only expensive one to solve your problems. Like, you can start with something lower end, get your feet wet, go through the headaches of working with this data, and honestly the struggles of portable hard drives around your office and the software, like working with it. Like, you have to learn and start somewhere. But I think honestly, I think that's the big, don't be afraid to get into it. Don't wait.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, because it's just going to get worse and your list of products in the market is going to keep getting bigger. I'd still say trust one that somebody's used.
Yeah.
If something new that's just, flashy and marketed out there, yeah,
Yep.
cool. If I can't see a demo and can't see some like hands-on with the thing and know anybody that's tried it, then I'm always a little bit suspect about it, no matter how good it seems. So, yeah, give it a try.
Those are all great points. Totally agree. Yeah, the best thing if you're looking to get started, find some other people who've done it, right? Ask questions. You're going to save yourself a headache because unfortunately, the way a lot of people have to learn now is just start Googling. And it's like nobody knows how many devices or what's out there or what's the difference between them or, and so, yeah.
And honestly, you go to the forums and you get opinions, and you got the diehard Regal users, you got the diehard Leica users, you got the diehard whatever, Geoslam, whatever it is. And it's like, and they'll just be very biased towards their tool. You know what? They're all good tools. They will all solve a problem.
Yep.
Will they solve yours? Don't know.
Yep.
So.
Yep. That's where I think community education can solve a lot of the industry's problems. Education around the different tools, the use cases, the accuracies, the benefits. The more that we can focus on that collectively and share it with each other, I think we can help, those entering the industry avoid some of those challenges. So
for sure.
Well, thank you very much for coming to share some of your story, and look forward to sharing this out with our community and, of course, seeing you again soon.
Awesome. Sounds good. Appreciate it.